to the PAX Roboto show. I'm Bucko.
I'm Bug.
And this is episode 2. And we're going to talk about a few things. Bug's a little limited on time, so we're going to try to stay focused today and not go too tangential. Although, I mean, that's part of what this show is all about, is kind of going tangential, right? It's
the nature of the beast.
This is your first time seeing the show. We are Subliminal Sun. This is a show focused on artificial intelligence and how our AI is integrating into our lives and into the music that we make, into our professional lives, into our artwork. And so we hope you enjoy it. Today, wanted to try that same sort of format that we did last week, which is just throw out something interesting from the week and just kind of run with it in a natural way. We haven't really pre-planned anything. And so maybe I'll go first, right?
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
a couple of big announcements. The one that jumped out at me was from Amazon Web Services, right? So they're launching something called hang on, let me pull my notes up. Sorry.
It's literally just came across the presses now.
So it's called Bedrock, right? And so it's integrating into their overall AWS platform and will allow you to use large language models easily within the AWS work stream. What was interesting about this is that they mentioned LLMs, but they did not mention GPT-4. They talked about Anthropic, Stability AI, and then Amazon's own LLM in A121. And so I thought that was interesting, right? The thing that's going to be exciting for organizations who are already using AWS is it's just going to give them a more centralized place to interact with these LLMs, experiment, figure out which ones are the best for their uses, and then build off of that infrastructure. And so that was part of their announcement, right? That was the main piece of their announcement, but then it just kept going on and on and on. Another part of that announcement that I thought was pretty exciting was that they were going heavy on the Code Whisperer. They're making it free and available to everybody. Yeah, to integrate into your AWS experience, which I thought was great, that it was open access to everyone. So even if you have sort of a free layer of AWS, let's say you're just using a bucket or something, then
and this Code Whisperer, this is the AI model that helps you build code for a variety of code languages. Is that what
yeah, right? So they're covering everything from Python, C++. Looking for the list that they gave us: PHP, SQL, C#, so Java. I mean, like all the major languages that you would need to get started, and certainly what you would need to integrate into work with Amazon Web Services in any way if your data's sitting out there on their cloud platform. So that's just going to make it easier for anybody to interact with data in a cloud environment, which of course has bigger ramifications for the data industry itself, and just this concept that's been bandied about for years of the citizen data scientist or the citizen analyst. The fact that in an organization or whatever you're working with, you could be utilizing the data yourself, even if you don't have a data science background or even a data analytics background. And so I was always a bit of a skeptic of that concept, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but this does get you a lot closer to that concept when you begin to interact using natural language to generate code and to generate processes and to allow it to work. So I mean,
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to do the grand experiment as well. I've begun creating a Subliminal Sun website using only AI tools, and might integrate this AWS. We'll get that up shortly. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
So I know we're doing some sort of exploration of the different AGI tools out there. We talked a little bit about that last week. So I spent a little bit of time in GitHub and doing some research on some different approaches and some different tools that are available.
So you're referring to the autonomous GPT, the autonomous AI that is now
AutoGPT, baby AGI, those kinds of things, right? This concept of generalized and basically AI that can do stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be a project I would like to undertake. And maybe what we can do is to utilize it for this podcast, right? To create an AI process that will edit and, effectively complete these podcasts for us, right? Or at least finish the final edits of a script for this, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I just want to be able to automate something, right? And I want to test out something in an automated way. So
yeah, I think we can intersperse AI generated graphics. Yeah, it'll probably generate some audio. Yeah, we'll
so either this podcast or a music video, where we're getting it to communicate with other AI that we're using to create the video, but also pulling from a database of images that you provided because of your style, which is another thing that should be on the checklist, is for us to, generate our own stable diffusion model or something that's trained with bug style visuals, right? And then ultimately use that to create the base and generate the base visuals that you would then automate and make into a video, right?
Right. And I've begun experimenting with that. Runway has a tool called video to video now. I think it's still limited to 5-second clips, but it's very cool. You upload a video and then you choose a style and it renders the video in that style. And the style that I used was a drawing that I had done. And so it and the video was a video of me like walking. And then so in this way, I've kept it all in house except for the AI. But it's me, it's a video of me, original video with an original style that I drew. And now it's combined the two together seamlessly to show me, walking down the street. And this was for Rasputin. So
we're gonna put that image. I'll put that up right now and show you what he's talking about. Yeah, to me that was just awesome. And we can use that even on a small scale for promotional videos on Instagram, right? So the concept of that, and then creating that AGI process to also generate us Instagram posts that, make sense and show the video and also put all the appropriate hashtags and things. Probably a lot more effective than me trying to do it because I'm terrible at Instagram, and
I would bet always, the farm on that.
And so having something do that process for us just obviously is a time saver. The question, of course, will always be, how does doing that and then generating something in your own voice actually represent your own voice? So would fans look at it and go, well, how do I know it's not an AI talking to me rather than Bucko or Bug, how do I know it's not? So if all celebrities start doing this within the year, right? I'm not saying we're celebrities, but if actual celebrities started doing this in a year, what would be the impact on people's perception of that?
Well, right. How do you separate the authentic from the, I don't know, is AI authentic? Is will the AI representation of someone? I mean, there's some pretty convincing deep fakes out there right now. It's getting more difficult to detect what is real and what has been generated artificially. And anyone,
but even when it's when it's not malevolent though. Do we accept that too? Do we accept emails at work that are written by AI rather than the person?
Or that Instagram or TikTok page is like Keanu Reeves, giving dating advice. Have you seen this?
No. But I mean, I can imagine it.
Yeah, it's as far as I know, it's all AI generated, but it's very convincing and pretty hilarious.
I
but
bet.
it's his image and it's his voice, and I don't
Yeah.
know how he feels about it, but
Right. Right. Probably not awesome about it. And I think there's still laws and infrastructure in place to fight that. If I'm Keanu Reeves, I'm suing whoever is doing that, just like he would have sued 5 years ago, somebody who
right.
was using his image, for their
Yeah.
own gain.
He'll smack a paparazzi's camera out of the
Yeah. Yeah, like that doesn't concern me. Like the idea that people's identity is going to be used in these in terms of their legal ability to fight that against that, right? Like that is already in place to
right.
protect IP.
Right.
What's not in place is the cultural, philosophical, and kind of moral dilemma, or at least the thinking around it,
Mhm.
for using AI in all kinds of human self-expression, like
Yeah,
texting somebody
true.
or sending
And
an email.
right. We just we began subscribing to Chat or GPT-4 actually,
Mhm.
and I've been experimenting with that. And I've seen that you've asked it some questions and had some emails proofread,
buddy.
whatnot. And it's very cool. It's definitely more sophisticated than 3.5.
Mm.
And I've been enjoying it. The first question I asked it, I kind of posed the question, hey, you're a brilliant and resourceful inventor. You wish to create a device akin to the replicator from Star Trek. Like, how do you go about this? And it gave me a very detailed, like 10-part list of what needed to be done to invent a replicator. I was like, man, that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
I mean, a lot of it was a little outside of the scope of what I could do right now. I need to assemble a team of, crack scientists that are, well versed in quantum mechanics and all this stuff.
But
But
at least you have the instructions.
I do, yeah. It laid out a very, very cool, a comprehensive plan. Which was cool.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to have to explore this concept on a personal level.
Yeah.
I'm okay. If you were to send me an email that is expressed in a clear and succinct way because it came through AI,
right?
But it's still expressed what you're trying to tell me, like no big deal, right? I think it's when it starts to get into more of abstract expression or artistic expression that people are going to be, or if it's trying to represent you in a social media sense, right? A public sense. Does that feel authentic to people? Because, we're going through a trend towards authenticity. The success of the Be Real app, if you're familiar with that social media app, but this idea that, as a society, we can do a better job of being more real when we're using social media and expressing ourselves in the world. This is sort of a potential return to something more airbrushed, right? Is that instead of me expressing myself in a natural way, I'm making sure I sound good every time. I'm making sure that
well, how different is that than taking a picture of yourself to post up on Instagram in the best possible light? You're
right.
like, you're
well, that's what I'm saying, right? That's my point. It's like it's counter to this movement of being real in social media.
I got you. Yeah.
And so, how will people feel about that? I'm just curious. I don't know the answer. I don't think it would bother me too much, but I mean, part of the release of one that we didn't talk about was what Databricks is doing right now, creating their own instruction-based model called Dolly. This is Dolly 2.0, right? The first one was using Stanford's alpaca model. They determined that that's probably not going to fly from a legal perspective. We can get into that another time, but they went with 2.0, and the training data set that they used there was sort of 15,000 instructions that were generated by their staff, right? So 5,000 employees across the country. And they gamified it so that it was much more productive, and they were able to pump out an LLM for a fairly low cost that is very good at following instructions. So you pump it with an IKEA instruction manual or whatever, it's going to learn that very quickly.
Oh my
And
God, that's huge. If it can
Yeah.
decipher an IKEA instruction manual, man, I mean, that's like
I'm using that as
that's
an
the
example.
litmus test right there. Yeah.
It's probably not true because IKEA is image based, so it'd have to be image based. I'm not sure it does that.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not sure it may, but definitely from a language perspective, if you had a written instruction manual, absolutely you could learn quickly, and that's going to be key, right? Because we want to be able to hook up these instruction based or these action based AGIs to tools quickly.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't want to have a huge amount of development and integration time behind the scenes, making sure that this AGI knows how to work this particular software program. It needs to take 1, 2, 3, just a few shots to learn, like humans do.
Yeah.
How to use it. It needs to be a quick and iterative process.
And they're getting better at that. Even GPT-4 is quite a bit better at that.
Yeah.
Did you read there was a tweet by Grant Brockman? Is that his name? Is the co-founder of OpenAI?
I did, yes.
Yeah, and he was talking about going forward, a Chat GPT 5, 4.2, and how they're kind of like the incremental releases of these updated GPTs. I thought that was pretty interesting. He covered some bases there. I did. All right. I had a question for you though. We're talking about authenticity and receiving an email that had been AI generated. Now, how do you feel about, so you've entered in a task, an objective to an autonomous GPT. So it's running through its steps, but part of that step is to communicate with someone in your voice. Is that something you would be okay with? And you didn't specifically instruct it to send an email, but in order to accomplish its task, it needs to send an email. So but you don't know what that email is going to be.
Yeah.
And it only has the end goal in mind. I mean, what if you tell it, I wish to have greater compassion and empathy for my fellow man. It's like, all right, we're going to create an experience where your ego is completely crushed and you're rendered
that's the first
we're going to plunge you into total penury, and then you're going to build your way back up, and you'll have a lot of empathy for other people, what,
that's one way.
Yeah.
So then you have to be explicit to say, but not by destroying my ego first,
Right.
Don't
destroy my life. Yeah.
Would I feel comfortable with that AGI? No, not yet.
Yeah. Well,
not yet at all.
Specifically, but I mean, that's one particular special case. But
realistic. It's not unrealistic what you just described.
So I also asked the, GPT-4 in the same chat thread as this Star Trek replicator question, so as an enterprising and resourceful inventor, what invention do you create first that would help you invent everything else along your way? And the answer it had was a PAS, a personal AI assistant. And then it laid out like all the the requisites for that and how it would help you along the way. And I was like, well, that makes
you didn't ask
sense.
anything about AI. You just
no, nothing about AI at all.
You could build one thing
if you could build one thing that would assist you going forward in all of your inventions, all of your affairs, like what would it be?
I guess that is the best answer.
Is it biased a little bit?
Is it biased?
I know, like you should definitely, develop me a little more. I think you should put your energy into that.
But it's a fact. Like if you ask me the question, I would say give the same answer, right?
Right.
You'd be not like, anybody. It's like, I'd have a robot that would do. I'd have C-3PO. I keep using him as the example, but I would have a C-3PO that just. Well, R2 made him much more functional because R2 could do stuff. C-3PO could just talk about stuff.
Right. The two worked as a unit. Yeah. Binary star of intelligence.
Yeah, but the theory of if I've got an AGI, let's say it's a baby AGI or whatever tool we're using, and it's hooked up to my Gmail account, it's hooked up to my Word account, it's hooked to and I told it, hey, I need to get some things sent off today and finished, blah, blah, blah. And it went and did that. It knows I need to send an email, and it knows I need to write something in that email to explain what the thing is. So, I would be allowing it to do that.
Right.
For the most part. Now, I would personally want to have a review But will we
Mhm.
get to a point in life where that isn't even a thing? And everybody knows that what they're getting is in an email is
Well,
mostly going to be AI generated.
this happens all the time with human players characteristics. Say you're an executive, or
Mhm.
I don't know, but you just have an assistant, a human assistant that writes
Sure.
emails for you, and that you know, as you work with that person, you'd probably trust them to do an email in your voice and send it out, or do you know, like
Those
to
people,
communicate
those people don't exist too much anymore. There's a few, but
personal assistants?
well, yeah, no, administrative assistants exist, but
Yeah,
most of them, well, I was thinking, do most of them still write emails for people? There was a time when, administrative assistants did everything. You'd sit there and
right,
talk and they would sit there and type. And so it's the same kind of concept. You're right.
right. I
Um,
mean, it's out of my
yeah,
wheel. I don't pay you for anybody to write my emails.
I know.
I
That would be
outsource that to
nice.
my kids.
Right.
Like, hey, write this email for me.
Yeah, free labor. I mean,
Yeah.
so like, well, if you have an AI bot,
Mhm.
what could you use it for that wouldn't be dangerous, right? How would you use it in a way that you could feel like you could just leave it do its thing?
Right.
Like my vacuum
Obviously,
cleaner.
the answer is trading cryptocurrency and like in microtransactions or the stock market. Um,
Yeah, it probably is the answer. Just
and
terrifies
those
me.
do exist right now.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, like scheduling and just reminding you of
Mhm.
appointments, a a stern taskmaster. Get back on
Mhm.
task. I don't know if I want that in
Mhm.
my life. Probably use it, but uh,
I do. I like that. I would like it to do exactly that, to look at calendars and remind me throughout the day as
mhm.
much as I need it to remind me,
Yeah.
rather than me having to set up a schedule of reminders, you know. Or
Mhm.
I mean, reminders work pretty well when you're like 15 to 30 minutes before a meeting. But if you haven't been thinking about it in a while and you got to do something right before it, blah, 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 just having something hey, don't forget, blah, 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 just a nudge in an almost random way, I think is more effective than having a set frequency of reminders. Like,
Right.
be my own reminder system and remind me as I need. Be my second
Right.
brain for that kind of
Or
stuff.
perhaps some biometric observations. It's like, oh, you're in a state of rest now. You're okay. The TV has come on or whatever. It's like, hey,
Mm-hmm,
then it nudges you. Hey, you got a
mm-hmm.
little bit of time now. What about this podcast coming up? You want to maybe think
Yeah,
about that and do some research? You're like, oh yeah. I
yeah.
mean,
So then if it's getting annoying, I say, hey, you're getting annoying. Just like back off a little bit. And it does. And it knows maybe tomorrow he'll be in a better mood.
yeah.
Like and it starts to do the same thing tomorrow. Da, 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 da. But it never feels forced or scheduled or, manipulated in any way. It's just sort of there. It knows you know it, and you
Mhm.
develop a relationship like you would with an admin. They become your friends, they become a confidant, they become part of your everyday.
Right.
You know, I've
I
never
mean,
had an admin quite like that, but
right.
if you're a highfalutin executive, you might have somebody like that. To your point, well, now everybody's going to have them.
Yeah, certainly a personal AI assistant would have a lot of benefits. Also, on the flip side of that is some inherent risks of having all of your personal data and
Yeah,
routines and everything, in the digital space and available for some type of security breach.
yeah,
I've been we're gonna have to leave in a few minutes, but I wanted to touch upon this real quick. I've been basically asking everyone I talk to, like, what is their experience with AI? Have you
yeah,
have you been checking it out? I asked my mother
yeah.
yesterday. She's like, yeah, she's a retired German professor. She was like, oh, I asked it some how to explain the data sense, and it didn't do a very good job. And I was like, oh well, let's ask GPT-4. So we did it last night, and she was pretty impressed. I mean,
Did pretty well. Yeah.
it did it really well. Yeah. I mean, even, writing in the German language, it
Oh
did
wow,
really well.
that
Yeah.
actually is kind of tough for it. Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm a man of many interests, and I'm a member of a group that, studies transcenduction and Reiki. We talk about all kinds of esoteric stuff. And I posed the question to them, like, what do you think about, this AI space and what's happening?
Yeah.
And there were some interesting responses. I think the prevailing concern was that if we begin to rely heavily upon AI to do our art and our writing, what will we lose in the process? Like, what is going to atrophy as we outsource, these tasks to an AI? Are we then going to be artless, soulless? Can we maintain our own abilities if we're relying on AI as a crutch? And that was that's a concern.
That's a really
for
good
sure.
question.
I think that would be more a question for, kids, new humans growing up in this environment that, that's all they know, or they've learned to, generate images and write. But I don't know, maybe they'll just become amazing at getting the AI to do exactly what they want. I mean, it's,
when it comes to creation, I think that's not going to go away. I think because it's such a human, it's part of the human element, right? Creation is going to use AI. But if you're somebody who's just using AI to generate images and you don't create them yourself or learn to draw or learn to paint, then you probably weren't destined to be an artist anyway. But yet you can still use a good quality visual mediums to tell your story, right? But the actual person who wants to learn how to paint, wants to learn how to be original, as long as that desire is still there, as long as that flame is still lit in the human experience, then we'll continue to create. But there are things that are going to atrophy for sure. Just like there are things that people, our generation grew up that don't know how to do certain things,
it's part of the changing, evolving nature of humanity. What it means to be human.
You can make that argument for spell check, which came out when we were in high school, decades ago. And so people made that same argument. Well, we lose the ability to learn how to spell. Well, no, schools still have a role in this, and they shouldn't be fighting against AI. They should learn how to work with AI, but also teach the skills so that kids can grow up to understand how to use AI properly.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't know how to code, how can you have AI code for you? And then how do you know what it's doing? Right. How do you know how to edit that? How do you know if it's accurate?
Exactly. Yeah. The more knowledge
you don't have some basic understanding of it.
Right. Yeah. If you need a way to interact with the AI, just the same as you need to, know how to create a code, and you know what language. I guess it's all about language and interaction, and being able to communicate effectively your desires and concerns. At some point, and it's already getting close to this, there will be far less of a leap from your own imagination in your head to what you see out here in the world. You'll be able to describe a scene to AI, and it will generate a picture or a video or a 3D model, like a video game that you can, walk through and experience virtual reality. It'd be pretty wild. Yeah. The imagination is still very powerful.
But I do think the future is that you never will have to write again if you don't want to.
Yeah.
When I say write, like you won't have to write paragraphs or full emails if you don't want to. And that's just going to be a human personal choice.
Right. And is that a bad thing? I don't know. There's a lot of things I'd rather do probably than write paragraphs.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing I like about the idea of emails being sent or texts being sent via AI rather than human, but the human expressing themselves to the AI to have it written, is clear writing. It is really hard to learn how to write well and succinctly, and it takes time and energy. And if you really put the time into creating something simple, then that's a large amount of energy that you could be using for something else that you might be more interested in or better at. Whereas the AI is going to produce something that, you know, most humans would agree is a more succinct way, which is why you're seeing the like texts and emails in GPT-4. I'm saying, hey, this is a complicated conversation. Make it simple. And it does that.
I'm going to make it simple. And we're talking about writing. And right now, I'm going to sign off. Yeah.
All right, brother.
Hey, bro.
Well, all right. Hey, have fun in Charlotte. And thanks, everybody. Here's our song. Whatever I decide, I'll put on the end of it.
You can't go wrong. All right.
Peace.
Yes, the more